you feel like the difference is? Because I want people to understand how being a medium and feeling spirit, or seeing and feeling spirit, are kind of like one and the same. How do you feel them, or how do you see them? We talked a little bit about this on last time, on like how, I get pictures, I get images, I get feelings, I smell things, the whole nine yards. How do you do it, or how would you express that?
So, like I can talk about how I do it, but like for just for context, I don't really do readings for people. What I do is I help people, I bring them through a process that allows them to connect directly. And the way that I do it is I'm there with the spirit as well, right? And I'm helping and I'm validating, I'm getting them connected and
Yeah.
helping them feel and understand. So it's like this whole three-way where it's like, the spirit is like helping me teach their person how to do it, and I'm helping them become aware of what they're feeling and when they're communicating. And so there's a lot of nuance
Yeah.
in a session with me, right? There's a lot of different
Yeah.
moving parts. But I would say the main thing, the way that it works for me, is through feeling, right? Is through feeling. If
Yeah.
I can get you to feel your loved one, there's so much information that comes through that.
Yes.
And that's where the beginning is. That's where the beginning is. If I can get you to just feel their presence, from there, that feeling is going to start to bring this information. You're going to feel, are they happy? Are they sad? What do they feel like? What is their energy? Are they a funny person? Are they somebody that's laughing? Is it somebody that's serious, or that's stern and that's very strict or monotone, or what are they? Right? You're going to get all of that information just through sensing their energy. And then what's going to happen is that feeling, and this is the next part, and this is how I help people understand it. That feeling, the information that you're pulling through the feeling is going to start to bring your other senses online. Now you're going to see them pull up. Oh, it's a funny person. Now I can hear them laughing. So not only are
Yes.
you feeling their sense of humor, now you hear them laughing. Now I can see a smirk on their face. Oh my God, I can see him wearing a top hat and he's got a black coat with boots, and now they're there. And boom, next thing you know, all of your senses are online and you're having a full sensory experience, right?
Yes.
And that's what it's like. That's what it's like for me in that process. It's just like I go, like most people that are just learning how to communicate with spirits or connect with spirit world usually have what I call a dominant sense, either one or two dominant senses. And it's not that it's dominant in a sense like this is my strongest sense and that's exactly what's going to happen for me and that's what it's going to be forever. No, it's just the sense that you have the most awareness of at this time, right?
Correct.
And I do a couple exercises that help people identify what that strongest sense is. And when we're in session, or when I'm doing my trainings, even we did a group training last night, what I'm having people do is lead with that dominant sense. Once we do the test and find out what their dominant sense is, I want you to lead with that, because what's going to happen is that's whatever it is. If it's hearing, I want you to hear for the spirit. If it's feeling, I want you to feel for the spirit. If it's seeing, I want you to see the spirit, whatever it may be. And so if it's hearing, you're going to hear the spirit, and that sound is going to bring an image, which is going to bring a feeling, which is going to bring a knowing, which is going to bring a
Yes.
smell, which is going to bring a taste, and that's how I let it unfold. Yeah.
Oh, look, that's so good. That's so good. I'm right there with you. I had a session last night. That's perfect. That's a great. People. Because they don't understand, which is, so we're here and we're trying to explain it. But it's you know we have to teach people how to disconnect and feel, like I said, feel the subtle nuances, right? Everything around us is constantly yelling at us. Everything's constantly beeping at us. Everything's like, oh my God, hi. Like I like it when, well, I don't like it, but I mean, I do at the same time when, you're at a restaurant, or let's say if I'm zoning out and I'm letting things happen, because sometimes, you can just let things happen or whatever it is. And it's just so busy. There's so much stuff, but it's so much easier and louder when you're channeling and quiet. Why? Because there's not anything else going on, right? Because you're able to pick up on those soft layers that are underneath. I had a weird session 2 days ago. I've never experienced this before. This gentleman shows up in my space. He's loud, he's talkative, he's a musician, he's gregarious, he's funny. He dies of a heart attack in the middle of Japan. But what he did, the first thing for me to understand that he was in an Asian or country, was that he made me taste like unagi, so like eel sushi, and that
Oh.
taste, right, like the first thing I go, this is so weird. I'm tasting like sushi. And I was like, let me, it was, you could taste the brown sauce and like the grilled marks. And I was like, that has never happened to me before. It was the oddest thing. And she was like, oh, he lived and he died in Japan. He was over there being a musician. I was like, how freaking weird. Like just little things like that. And so lately I've been getting more smells. I've been getting more taste. Like yesterday I had a gentleman that comes up and he was trying to tell me what his favorite food was. And I had a pack of grape gum because I'm obsessed with this Bubblicious grape gum. Anyways, I don't have any with me right now. But he made me taste that. I was like, something about like grape gum. She's like, he was obsessed with like literally like grape candy, anything grape. And I was like, oh, it's weird that I brought it in here and now I'm tasting it and like, you know, the whole thing. Do you ever find it hard to understand it? Do you ever like step back and just think, I don't know, wow. Are you in constant appreciation? Are you in constant gratitude? Are you amazed at it? Do you, so many people, as they get more and more into it, they just go, oh, it happens to me, whatever. You know,
Yeah,
how do you,
I'm in constant amazement, and that's what I tell people too, is that we need to really honor that connection and praise it for the miracle that it is. You know, we're communicating in a way with other dimensions, other realms, other beings of existence. And we need to celebrate even the small wins, and the celebration and the gratitude is what opens the floodgates for more of it to rush in. And so, yeah, I'm in constant amazement with it. I'm in constant amazement with it, no matter what. Like I have crazy experiences all day long, and I'm just like, I shouldn't be like surprised, but I am,
that's
because it's amazing. It really is, truly is an amazing experience when you go through it. And as far as like stepping back and like trying to decipher like what am I experiencing right now, like um that doesn't happen so much anymore, because I understand what it feels like when I'm having an
yeah,
experience now. And that's the key to the whole thing, is knowing what it feels like for you. I call it spirit radar, right? It's getting to know what your unique spirit radar is, and what it feels like when you're in the presence of a spirit, and what it feels like when you're hearing it, what it
yeah,
feels like when you're seeing it, and all of those little nuances. And once you understand that, it's undeniable after that, right?
correct.
But except I can tell you, I had a recent experience for me, and this is like, it really helped me understand what people go through when they experience recent loss. I had an uncle of mine. He passed away about 2 months ago. We were really, really close. And it was devastating. It was unexpected, and it was really tough on me. And I knew the night that he passed away, I was up all night and I couldn't sleep. There was a spirit that was hanging out. And I knew, like, I have such good boundaries with spirit rules. Like, don't hang out in my room when I'm sleeping. And this spirit would just not listen. And I wasn't having it. Right. And so anyway, so I was up all night, and then in the morning, my brother called me and told me what happened. And I knew it. And I was so devastated. I wanted to immediately, like, oh my God, I'm sorry. If I knew that was you, I would have, like, of course I would have woken up. Right. And I'm so emotional and so vulnerable, grieving and the loss and all of that stuff, that I just couldn't be there with him. I couldn't connect. I would feel him for a second, then it would be gone. And then I got this awareness. I was like, I just need to go for a walk. And I went for a walk, and I was out, and it was a beautiful day. It was sunny, and the sun was shining. And as soon as I got outside and kind of settled myself, and I'm like, okay, he's here. I know he's not gone. Yeah, it sucks that his physical body's not here. I can't hug him anymore, and I'm going to have to deal with that bullshit. I'm going to have to deal with
Yeah,
that grief. I'm going to have to deal with that. But right now, I really need you, Uncle Don. And
yeah.
and as soon as I said that, whoosh, there he
Whoosh,
is.
whoosh. I was about, oh, that's so weird. Okay, I was about to ask you, did you feel the whoosh? It is, you will feel that. That's the best way I can describe it.
Immediately, and it was so strong, and it was in such a way that was undeniable, right? And so, you know he's giving me like very specific things. He's telling me things with great detail on a lot of stuff, right? And when it's our loved one and we're communicating without any external validation, right? If we're not reading for somebody and they're telling us yes, no, right? It's kind of hard for us to validate when it's our loved one and we're so close with them, because we know what we would expect them to say. And so when I'm getting this information, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so doubting this. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's so much doubt. And I'm like, I don't know. And so what I teach people is when you're communicating with your loved one in that way, what you can always do is ask them for validation. Ask them that you need validation, that you heard it properly. And so I was like, I'm thinking to myself, what would I tell my students? And I'm like, Uncle Don, I really need, there's some really big moves that you want me to make here. If I'm hearing it correctly, I need you to show me a sign that's undeniable. And then immediately I started seeing pumpkins, 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 all in my mind's eye, pumpkins, 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 pumpkins. And knowing, I didn't really understand what they meant at that time, but I've learned to just trust spirit. And so I was like, okay, pumpkins, right? The very
Yes.
the very next day, without I hadn't talked to my cousin anything. My cousin sends me a text message of my uncle. They were going through old family pictures, and she sends me a text message of this old family picture of my Uncle Don laying down in front of this massive pumpkin.
Boom.
And that was it. And that
Yeah.
was the validation from the spirit that I needed. And so that's what I tell people is like when you get tripped up, you can ask the spirit to help you.
Yes. Yes. That's what exactly. I teach people all the time to do that. I go, you have to sit there, take a moment, call them in, connect, ask them what you want to see, feel, hear, or experience, and then give them a little bit. And then, like I always say, like 24 to 48 hours. That's what I do with my own people. And then it'll show up. It will show up. And then what I tell them to do is whenever it shows up, you give gratitude, you give thanks, you show appreciation, and then you go and you do it all over again. And then you'll start seeing like double signs. So you'll start seeing like what they're giving you before, and then just that's what happens with my dad, right? And I know what you're going through with the whole it's difficult as a medium, and it's difficult when you're channeling and you know that it's around, and you know that it's all there, because you miss that hug, right? You miss the fact that you can't just pick up the phone and say, with my dad, we all curse at each other. It's like, hey, asshole, how you doing? He's like, what are you doing? But and we go back because he was born in 35, so he was automatic. And so we're going back and forth, and you can't do that. But now I can tell you that they help you so much more in spirit than they could ever do here. So it's maybe you get a little more physically lonely, but if you know how to vibe and if you know how to ask, I mean, your life can just take off.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And this was the first person, like, well, other than my grandmother was like, that was like, I was so new to all of this when my grandmother passed away, but she was the first person that was that close to me that I lost. And I mean, she had been a tremendous resource in the beginning, right? But with my uncle, I'm still learning what that looks like, right? Because this is the first big loss that I've experienced since I've been well ever in my life. I haven't. I've been very blessed where I haven't. I have both my parents and my family and everybody's here, and so I haven't really lost anyone like this was my uncle was 55, so that was like it was like the first time that I was this close with somebody that we lost. Yeah.
So maybe we have a session because you're getting mad vibes. I can tell you. So this is another thing is that if you so this is what I do. So let me just tell you an interesting story. This was not yet. It was a day. So my dad, he'll be around me and he'll show up in sessions. And in my head, he almost like him, or he'll use himself as like a sign. When he shows up in my head, that means the person was like active duty military for some reason. Another thing is that he shows up and he talks to somebody's person that's dead, and like it's almost like I'm hearing him have a conversation with them and I'm hearing what they're talking about. So this was 2 days ago. I have a woman and a older woman and then a daughter in front of me, and they give me a first name of a gentleman. This gentleman shows up in my head. He's cocky, he's funny, he's a postman. He keeps talking about how it's too hot to deliver mail and how he's glad he doesn't do it anymore. And so I was like, did he like work for the postal service? And they're like, yeah, he was doing this for like 33 years anyways. So he's in my head and my dad shows up, and I was like, haven't seen him in months in my head. And so I was like, okay. I was like, interesting. So I start to tear up a little bit, and I'm listening in my head, and he was like, oh man, you had cancer too? And he was like, yeah, I did. Like, what type? I'm like, well, I died of, liver, pancreas, like you. And he's like, lung. Yeah. And so I told my client, I'm like, okay, so this gentleman had lung cancer. And they were like, yeah. I'm like, okay, interesting. Because I'm telling them about, dad and what's going on. And then I ask him, and this is how real it is, and it's so weird when you're channeling versus when you go back into reality, is that my dad he's joking with a gentleman in my head, and he says, oh, my girls, this one points to me, boop, turned me off, which means like I took him off life support, which we did. And he's like, what about you? He's like, oh no, they left me in the house. I did it on my own. And I was like, okay, so he died in this house and he ended up passing away on his own. And he was like, they're like, yeah. And so anyways, just like, it gets that intense. And so when you're done with the session, it's gone, when you're not zoned out. But it's the weirdest thing. I can't explain that. I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't need to explain it. Maybe it blows my mind.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So your dad was actually helping you with a reading. That's cool.
Yeah, and so that's why I was saying you can use your uncle down the line. You call him in, and you'll know what he feels like. You'll hear him when he shows up. I hear my dad laugh when he shows up. I hear this, and I'm like, all right. But it's that inner knowing hearing, not like outward hearing. And then he shows up, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And but they're always there, and it. And then I have a sometimes even before a session, especially if it's really tragic, especially if it's a murder, the person's soul will be here waiting for a session. And and I can't describe this. You're the only person I can really like talk to about this. Well, besides all my people, but they're here. And there was this one time, let me give you an example. I had a session with, I hadn't started anything, hadn't put all of my stuff up yet, and I'm on live. And this guy shows up and he feels really physical. He shows up right here. And I ask him in my head while I'm on live, I was like, well, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm here for a session. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, well, what? And the way he felt, he was anxious, he was pacing. And he's like, man, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it, which means he committed suicide in my head. That's how he died. And so I'm on live. I'm like, there's a guy here. He's not older than like 19, 20. He committed suicide. I said, he's talking about his fiance. I said, I don't think he ever got married. And I asked him, I said, how did you do it? And I had one client like a year ago that her son had wrapped a plastic bag around his head and put, dioxide or whatever that is in his thing and died. And so he shows me that image. I said, I think he wrapped a bag around his head. Anyways, I go into my first session. My poor client is panicked. She had been on that live and she had been waiting, and she was my first session, and that was her fiance who died at 19, and that's how he killed himself.
Wow.
I have that recorded, like the whole thing from the live to that. It was, what is that? Where does that come from? What I don't know. Have you had
Yeah,
that?
yes, absolutely. And so I have this thing, spirit world. Like my whole deal is so it gets a little complex. It's going to take a second to really explain this here. So the way that I understand it, and the way that I've been trained and what I experience when I experience a spirit like that is that it's what we call a soul fragment. And so it's a fragment of the energy. It's not that this soul is trapped here on earth and it's sitting here doing its thing, right? There's still the larger part, right? We're omnipresent beings. We exist everywhere. And there's only a portion of our energy that gets projected into the physical body. And when we die in that way, when we die suddenly, when we die tragically, when we die dissociated, or when we die, and it's suicide, and it's like in those rawness of those emotions, what happens is rather than that energy that's projected currently here in the physical body, rather than it withdrawing into spirit, what happens is that it fractures, it separates, it compartmentalizes, it creates this container of pain so the rest of the being can go on and incarnate and project its energy into a new physical body, reincarnate, right? But there's that fragment that remains here. It's still part of that energy, but it's
Yeah.
compartmentalized, it's dissociated, it doesn't realize that it's part of that energy. All it understands is the trauma that it experienced at the time of death or whatever was going on in life. And these fragments, that's what every single haunting is. That's what all paranormal stuff is. It's these fragments that are wandering around. They're stuck in this loop. They're stuck in what I call a trauma bubble, continuing to repeat that energy, the fragment of the energy, not the entire being, just a fragment of that energy is continuing to repeat and play in a constant loop, a cycle of what it experienced tragically. And
Yes.
my deal is when I see that, I'm going to take care of it, right? And there's not a whole lot that, like, you can't force a spirit to cross over. I know that there's many people out there that disagree with me, that say that
You
they can.
no,
You,
that's between this and source.
yeah,
You but you can help, you can lighten the load, but that's between them and God, them and source. Like,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. It's there's nothing. I can't meet one of those spirits and say, go to the light, right? And
yeah,
save. There's not enough holy water in this world to get a spirit to cross over that doesn't want to cross over. So what I do is I approach it in a very different way. I'm a trained trauma therapist, right? I've gone through extensive training. I have that's my background. And so what I do when I find these fragments or when I notice them, what I do is I work with them just like I do with one of my clients. And I help resource them, because what happens is when we come across these spirits, it's almost like they're drunk. Like that's
yeah.
kind of what they're in this, like, ooh. And I know that you probably feel that when they come in and you're channeling them, it's almost like you getting that energy too, right?
I do exactly. Yes. Okay, keep going. Sorry, this is great. Fine.
And so what happens is you've got to wake them up out of that, right? And so that's the first thing we have to do. And so I come across all kinds of spirit: angry spirits, pissed off spirits, sad spirits, grieving spirits, fearful spirits. All of you can imagine all the gamuts of emotions, and these are what these fragments are lost in. They're lost in those emotions. They're wrapped and covered in those heavy emotions, and they know nothing else.
Right.
And so when I approach them, depending on what the emotion is or what this spirit is dealing with, really depends on our interaction. And you can imagine sometimes, and this is why people get freaked out about scary stuff in spirit world, is can you imagine approaching a spirit that all it knows is anger and it's just pissed off? Like, that does seem scary. But
Yeah.
what do you do when, like, so how do you treat a person that's pissed off? Most people are going to either leave the situation or whatever. As a trained therapist, what I'm going to do if I'm with a client who's pissed off, I'm going to get them settled. And that's exactly how I handle it, right? And so I say, oh, okay, yeah, you want to do these things and you don't like me. Okay, I understand. But I'm
Yeah.
not afraid, and I see you. I see you there. And here's the thing. Here's what I want to do. I just want to get to know you. I want, what happened? How did you get this way? Right? Don't you have a family? Don't you remember where you came? Where did you come from? Right? And so what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to come around the back door. Right? I'm not going to thump them in the head with a Bible. I'm not going to
You.
command them to leave in the name of Jesus. I'm going to go around the back door and I'm going to talk to them in a very soft way. And I'm going to get them to open up somehow, some way. I'm going to find my angle and I'm going to get them to start to tell me their story. And
Yeah.
then as they're telling me their story, I'm going to be looking for resources in their story. So what the ideal scenario is that I'm going to get them to start talking about their family, right? And here's how it happens every single time. There is no exception. This is how spirit crosses over. Is so I find the resources, right? And I say this, like, so I get them talking and I get them in their emotions, and they might say something like, yes, and my wife, these people, I died trying to protect my wife. We were being robbed and it was awful and it was terrible, and these things and the stuff that I saw, and it was, I miss her so much, and I can't believe that I let those things happen to her. And I want to get them to open up. And I'm using this this is actually a spirit that I did resource before. And I said, oh, and I told her, I said, oh, and I said, that's terrible. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. That's a lot to really deal with, watching those things and how they treated your wife. And that's really honorable that you did everything that you could for her. But let me tell you something that happened a long time ago. Your wife's not here anymore. Wouldn't you like to see her? Wouldn't you like to see your wife? Oh, I can see my wife again. Yeah, yeah. Look over there. Look at the light. Who's standing there? Who's waiting for you? Oh, it's her. And it's gone.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes. 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 That's just oh my God. When I'm doing a session like that, when I'm getting there, there's something about working, they're talking about their trauma, they're talking about what happened, they're trying to give their I shouldn't, could have, I could have, would have, you know, the whole 9 yards. They're letting everything go, and then like at the very end of it, like there's this lightness that comes with it. There's this,
You
and
feel
it's,
it lift. Yeah.
yes, yes, there is that. There's a whoo, and then every, you know, it almost feels like, I mean, I don't smoke, but it's like me and my client kind of need to lay back and like have a cigarette afterwards, like that whole thing. But it's intense, and see, nobody else explains it like that. I'm right there with you. It is a thing, and so that's why we need to go to some very interesting places and go look and feel some things. So, and what you were talking about, like doing, why, I don't even like to call it investigations. I just like to call sitting there and feeling, you
Yeah.
know, and going from there. I have people from, I mean, it just depends. Like, do you want to go down a historical area? Do you want to do like people on TikTok's houses that they think that they're haunted? Do we want to go and do um you know, battlegrounds? Like what area? Because I love history.
So,
I'm a history.
so, so I was talking to a friend of mine who is very active in the paranormal community,
Yeah.
and I was telling her what I wanted to do, and she's like, if you go to the famous places that you have to pay to get in to do investigations, and you tell them that you want to help the spirits cross over, they will not let you in. That's like their bread and butter, she says. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, that's fucked up, you
Is,
know?
isn't it? Yeah. There's the Pennsylvania State Paranormal Society contacted me. Love them. Talked to them before. One of them wanted me to do an interview on like a haunted doll, and I'm sitting there thinking like, I don't believe in haunted dolls. Like, you know. Anyways, we'll get in that later. My God, like you're an all knowing, omnipotent, amazing being, and I decide that I want to haunt this chap's, like, doesn't make any sense. Anyways, move past. So with that, they said, they go, do you want to go to the Amityville horror, no, the Conjuring house? And so I was like, they're like, oh well, you need to come with us, and you need to go, and like, oh my God, I feel there's so much terror and stuff. And I'm like, I would sit there and just be like, what are y'all doing? Or is there anybody actually in here? Are we just like playing up the whole thing? And they're like, that's not gonna make good television. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, why are we, like, they're still people, they're still spirits, like, why do we have to put them on show? Why do we have to make them part of a sideshow? Why don't you realize that they're people too, you know, like,
They are, and that's how we make them feel comfortable. And it's the thing. It's so when you see like so first of all, the stuff we see in the horror movies, what Hollywood does is a complete exaggeration. That is there is nothing like that. You're not having these poltergeists and heads spinning around, and there's nothing crazy that happens in that way, right? But but you can aggravate a spirit, right? And that's the way that it happens when you go in there and you're like, oh. You know, that's the, especially an angry spirit, that's
yeah,
when, like, that's the energy they're feeding off of. That's what they want. They want to get that, oh, you want to fight? Let's fight. And then that's when the crazy stuff starts to happen. Nothing dangerous, but that's when things start to get, for most people, spooky, right?
yeah,
And when you approach it the other way from the back, when you approach it in a very calm, like you don't scare me. I understand. Look, you want to have like I tell people. So here's the thing. I'm gonna tell a story real quick, and I know that your audience and you're the right person to tell this story.
yeah,
So I work with people all the time, right, in traditional therapy, and a lot of the times when we start poking around in like childhood stuff,
yeah,
spirits come through, right? Spirit attachments. And so there was this one client that I had that this angry spirit came forward and was like, I'm gonna get you. Like, and it's my client channeling the spirit. And it's like, I'm gonna fucking get you. And I'm like, okay, who are you? And I'm doing my thing. And you're like, I'm not talking, I'm gonna get. And that's all this spirit would say. And I was like, okay, well, go ahead and get me. And
yes,
they and I could see them like coming out of the body, like trying to like coming out of the energy field, trying to grab me and just going right through my energy. And I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there, and this spirit's pissed off saying how it's gonna get me. And I'm saying, okay. I said, all right, are you done? You know, how's this working out for you? You know, are you done trying to get me? You ready to talk? Let's talk and let's have a conversation. And so that's how like we finally got to it, because they realized I'm like, how fun is this? You can't get anybody. You want to get somebody? Let's talk. I want to help you. you know? And that's when like the whole thing goes full circle and we start to talk and I start to get the story. And with this particular client, what it ended up being, it was an ancestor, it was a great grandmother from like 4 generations back that was this crazy story that witnessed her husband killed her child, and she was so angry and so pissed off, and in the heat of the moment she went after the husband killed her while she was in this fit of rage, right? And that's what caused her to imprint, remain earthbound, fragment, and she hooked into the husband. The husband went into a new, the husband got a new wife, the wife, and then this, and then went, she went from the husband to the new wife, and then just hopped from family member to family member until she was with my client.
And then we released her. We released her. Yeah, it's there is you know what, when I tell people don't be angry, don't be mad, don't let little things, I mean that's a big thing. You know, I probably would have killed him too. But anyways, that's the Scorpio. But
Right.
don't things you know, like that affect it will keep going down. Okay, so for I know you're gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go here in just a second because I gotta go talk for like 15 minutes by myself before I get into my thing. But I wanted to ask you, what do you first off, haunted dolls? Talk about that.
Doesn't resonate with me. And you know, it really doesn't resonate with me at all. I mean, can something like that happen? I guess it's a possibility, but I've never come across it, and I don't know how it would be. Like, how does like spirits can't like they have a lot of difficulty in manipulating physical objects, right? And so I don't understand like why would it go into that? Like it would there would have to be like so I'm thinking like logically
Yeah,
like okay, just because I haven't experienced it doesn't make I'm not going to say that it can't happen, but I'm going to say that everything that I've learned and everything that I've experienced and all my experiences and everything that I know about spirit world tells me that it can't happen. But let's say that it did. Why would it happen? This whatever the spirit that occupies that would have to have such a strong energetic charge and tie with that doll, like it almost would have been like the doll bludgeoned it to death or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Or
Does
they
it?
would yeah. And so
I'm
I don't understand it. I don't think it's a I don't believe that it's something that can happen, and if I ever came across it, I would definitely deal with it.
yeah, I would probably do. I would just say, all right, I'm going to release you. I'm just going to burn you in the fireplace. Have a great day. I'll see you later, right? Because you're not burning the spirit. You're just saying goodbye. Go find another thing, whatever. You're not giving it power, right? You're not giving that thing. It's like the oh ye haunted yellow crayon. I mean, my God. Anyways, that's a whole other thing. Yeah,
Right.
we got to get together. We got to figure this out. We'll go live again. When wait, what part of Florida are you in again?
I'm in Tampa, Central Florida.
Okay, so you're way down there. I was like, man, if you're in Pensacola, when I go to Biloxi, I can just boo bop over there and then like, you know, back and forth, back and forth. Have you ever gone to what do you call it? Do you ever go up the East Coast? Do you ever go to like New York or Pennsylvania or Massachusetts or anything like that?
Yeah, I haven't been since COVID, but yeah, I have a lot of friends up in that area. So yeah, I do, especially you know, upstate New York. Also, you know, Saratoga. I have some friend Lake George area. I have some friends out there.
Oh, oh my, shut up. Everybody's, I went to upstate New York 2 weeks ago. Every client of mine well, I have to say, out of like 10 clients, 6 of them are from upstate New York. Now you're talking about Saratoga and the Finger Lakes. I have to go back up there. Let's just say that. That's going to be
It's
my thing.
gorgeous. You know, you know what, you know what would be cool? I have a friend that has a place on Lake George, and they have all of those. That's such a beautiful. Have you ever been there?
No, I've seen it. I was down south in like Beaver Kill Roscoe area. So right on the border of Pennsylvania and New York down there.
So Lake George is a massive crystal clear lake. It's huge and it has these islands in it. And he has access to these islands and he's like, why don't you do a retreat? We could easily do a retreat on one of these islands and da, da, da. And so that was all before COVID, but it's still on the table, right? And so yeah, it would be an awesome place to do some some connecting.
Yes. Okay. So let me tell you. So retreat now. Again, we're doing ideas. We're moving forward. We're going from there. So there's a couple of things on the table for that. So this is kind of like the next thing that I'm working on, a bigger thing. I want to find a couple people. I like, here we go, you, and then I have a couple others. But I was looking at either going to a place, you know, like that, and having a retreat and having people there. That way we can all feel and experience and be a part of this, right? Or I was going to build something. So one of my really good friends, who's also a student, she owns 400 acres down in the middle of central Mississippi on old, like, I mean, very old, intense area. Let's just call it that way. Very old, intense area. And so I was gonna, yeah, there's a whole lot of feeling stuff going on there. I tell you what, the South has some dark stuff, and there's a lot of.
Yeah.
I love going to spooky places and feeling. I like that extra charge on top of it. But so I was gonna go and build like little areas or little, hotel rooms or whatever it is, and so that you have like 10 or 15 people or 20 or 30 people show up for a thing. Everybody has their own room. You have a campfire thing in the middle, stuff like that. And so I'm looking into doing something like that, maybe.
So that would be interesting. I would love to do something. I would love to be involved in something like that here locally. And
Yeah.
also something that you may want to think about too is that I do run international retreats too. I have a full scale 11 days in Ireland and then 14 days in Egypt. And so I have in Ireland they're both amazing. So in Ireland, I'm just going to tell you real quick because I know that we got to go. But just I want you to like I don't have any bookings, I don't have anything set up yet, but I have the logistics and everything full on ready to go. But what happens in Ireland is so we fly in, it's all south. We don't go to Dublin. We're flying to Shannon and everything is south country. Everything is it's where everything is ancient, right? And
Yes.
we go around to all the sacred sites in Ireland and connect. We go to these old graveyards from the 17, 1800s. We stay the night in a haunted castle. We go to these holy wells. We go to the Hill of Tara. I have some Irish mystics that come in and do storytelling, and and we do hikes, we do excursions, we go to some of the islands off the coast. There's a monastery there. There's also, it's really crazy. There's a Buddhist temple down in the South Country that is amazing. It's phenomenal. It's got a lot of history. There's a lot of things to it. And so that's like the whole Ireland tour in a gist, and the waterfalls, and it's just beautiful. And we stay 2 nights in this like 5-star resort, and so it's a mixture of like really rich ancient stuff and connecting with the spirits and the land and the people and luxury, right? And
Yes.
and then the trip in Egypt really is once of a lifetime trip. It is totally amazing. So the way that works is we fly into Cairo. On the first day we sleep. Then we go and we have a private tour of the Sphinx, where my group gets an hour in between the paws of the Sphinx. We're there by ourselves at sunrise. Nobody is there. No one else is allowed onto the site. It's just me and my group in between the paws of the Sphinx. And so we do our thing there for an hour, and then we kind of relax and we chill. Long story short, what happens is then the next day we fly to Luxor, where we get on our private yacht, and we sail down the Nile for 9 nights, stopping at all the sacred sites along the way, all of the temples, the Valley of the Kings, the Temple of Luxor. We go all the way down to Aswan, all the way down as far as we can go. Then
Yes.
on the last day, we fly back to Cairo, private tour of the Great Pyramid. We go inside of it. You can go down. It's quite a trek. I was there myself last time in 2017. You can go down. We're the only ones inside the pyramid. We're
Yeah.
allowed to go down into the subterranean chamber, the Queen's chamber, that's like 180 feet underneath. And
Yeah.
it's a really difficult climb. Then we can go upstairs and we can go into the King's chamber, and you can lay in the sarcophagus.
There you go. Okay, see, we got it now. Now this is another thing. If we do the Egypt thing, I gotta go and get my boy Brian Forrester, who is like the king of what is it? Ancient Mesopotamian society, and he goes through and he's intense. He goes to Aswan and he's trying to, how they have the, now let's get into that for a moment. You know how they have the ancient cataclysm of like 12,500 where it wiped out like the old civilization, especially like the Paracas and everything like that. So everybody was using their minds. And so they don't understand why there are these large basalt things inside of, these pyramids and stuff, whenever the Aswan quarry is like 500, miles away. And so anyways, he's the head person of that and all of his investigators and scientists. And so, anyways, he's my friend and he does trips there and Peru. And oh, it could be history, nerding out, and spirits. So
Totally nerding out, because he would be a cool person to have, because the Egyptologists that we have are like,
yeah.
the whole trip is spiritual. Like everybody was like, and we have private security. We have like, it's totally safe, right? And it's like we have our own buses, we have everything, right? But we have several Egyptologists that are just so freaking phenomenally knowledgeable, and they're spiritual. Everybody that's on the strip is spiritual. And so the Egyptologist is not just telling us about Egyptian culture and traditions and their spirituality, but he also knows the other stuff. Like he's going to talk about aliens, and he's going to talk about like all the other cool stuff too.
Okay. Well, we gotta talk about that. I'm down for the Ireland one. I just watched a lot of stuff on YouTube on how it's terrible to go to Egypt for people that film because like they're I don't know, that was what the greatest food review show ever. If anybody's watched that, anyway, sometimes I watch stuff like that. But they're talking about how it's terrible to go and do filming. I mean, obviously we want to do filming, but I think we would a little bit. I don't know. I'll figure that out. I have all this.
So I'll reach out to I'll reach out to my people over there. I don't think it'll be an issue. The connections over there are amazing. Like I said, it's a once in a lifetime VIP trip. When we're in Egypt, like those sites, like have thousands of the temples and the sacred sites have thousands of people that go through them every day. We time it where we're there in the morning at sunrise, and nobody else is there. We are the only ones in these massive sacred sites, right? We are by ourselves. And so, and we watched, there's the Temple of Isis is probably one of the most beautiful experiences ever. We watched the sunrise over the Nile at the Temple of Isis. I mean, it's just, and we're the only ones there. And we'll talk more about it.
Yeah. Okay. You go and have fun. I'm going to make some more. Guys, I'll be back. If you want to book or if you want to see what's going on with August, go and check out his stuff, New Age Mythbusters. That's over there on his channel. He's fucking amazing. And I'll talk to you soon. We'll do something, okay?
Love you. Talk to you soon.
Love you. Bye.